And like I was playing at kind of different golf courses, and you have the older men come up to you and say, women aren't allowed on the white tees. I was kind of walking down like the last hole when I was playing it, and I was thinking to my mum, I was like, I've done this. Pressure is a privilege, and I think that's so cool.
Hello and welcome to Stronger Than You Think with me, Ashleigh Wilmot.
And me, Jodie Ounsley. Our guest today has come here straight from the golf course.
She's the former English stroke play champion. She turned professional this year and she now is playing on the Ladies European Tour. A big warm welcome to Annabell Fuller. Good to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Congratulations. I mean, you're now professional as of this year. What's it like playing on the Ladies European Tour?
I mean, it's really fun. It's definitely a little different than I would have expected. A lot more travel, not a lot of time at home. And I've learned to live out of my suitcase. So other than that, it's been great.
Yeah, I feel like everyone probably thinks it's really glamorous, but actually travelling so much, it's so demanding, isn't it? Like, it looks great on Instagram.
Yeah, it sounds good when you take photos of places you've been. But then when you realise you sat on a flight for hours, you're waiting for delays, and you're like worried if your suitcase is going to arrive or not, and then finding an Airbnb, rental cars, like the lot is a little bit more stressful, but it's still fun.
And the non-stop packing as well. I think that's probably the worst part, isn't it? It's just people don't realise how stressful it actually is. Like, so aside from that, how did you actually sort of get into golf?
So I started like pretty much as soon as I could walk. My sister did it. She's a couple years older than me. And then she got really good. So then naturally I just copied everything she did. So then golf was one of those things. And then I just kept playing. And then my dad entered her and I into tournaments, and then kind of never looked back. And here I am.
It felt like you were destined for this, though, because your parents are both coaches, right?
Yeah, they're both tennis coaches.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't get away without picking up a tennis racket. Did you always feel like you had a natural ability to play tennis, like from a young age?
Probably. I mean, I think like overall, like I was quite like a tomboy. Kind of I like doing outdoor stuff, playing all different sports. And then I think kind of like I've noticed even with kids now, like when you see like they play more like ball sports, like it kind of transfers over a little bit more.
Yeah. And did you feel like, did you feel like with having a sister that you were looking up to, if she could do it, were you inspired by her as well?
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to be just like her, like still like to this day, like everything she does, I like learn from and pick up and try and copy as much as possible.
Love that.
What I was going to say is, what actually attracted you to golf? Because like when you're growing up, like school and stuff, it's not just one of the main sports you sort of try out in class and stuff. What about golf made you think, yeah, I want to do that? Like, what appeals to you?
I don't think there was like a day where I was like, okay, golf is cool. Yeah. Like, I'm not sure if I think that yet even. But I think kind of like when you start to play more tournaments and you meet other girls who play it, it's like, okay, like they're pretty cool as well. Like they're actually like normal. Yeah. Because it's not like gymnastics where kind of everyone does it when you're younger or, but like going on like different trips away. And then I started playing for England when I was 13. So like I went to Spain and I did a trip there, and it was like so much fun, and you're with other people who are obviously same level as you, so competing in that kind of aspect is actually a lot more like appealing and fun. And I think if more people saw that side of it, it would like seem more attractive than 50-year-old like men walking around playing.
Although there's nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with it.
I guess golf is for everyone, but yeah, you were introduced to it from such a young age. And then, like you said, you played for England at age 13. So how does that come about?
Yeah, I mean, my sister was in the England squad. So then they had like small regional squads. So I like went to one of their trials and then got into the team and then kind of progressed my way from there.
Amazing. Look, we'll touch on that a little bit more, but let's talk about you going to college in Florida, because not everyone can say that they've done that. So how does that, come about?
So I actually went for 1 year to high school in America. My dad worked with this guy who like worked in IMG Media, and he kind of said, "Oh, have you ever looked at going to the IMG Academy in Florida?" And he was like, no, like I don't want my daughter to go away from me. Like my parents are very like, be at home, like we miss you, come home. But then he was okay with the idea of somehow me going all the way to Florida when I was like 16. So I went there for a year and then played tournaments there, and then met the Florida coach amongst like the other college coaches as well, and then kind of spoke to different ones, went on a couple of visits, and then like committed to that school, and yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's a big jump, especially as a 16-year-old, like just to go to the other side of the world. How, especially if you're close to your family, was that a struggle? How did you sort of manage that, or sort of the new environment and things like that? Was it easy, or was it quite hard to manage?
I think I was quite lucky that I went to IMG before like going to the University of Florida, because that kind of like got me slightly away from my family while still being kind of, you're in like a boarding school type thing with people who are looking after you. You've got like a roommate, whereas when I went to college, you have your own room and like you're by yourself. Like if you need help, you've got to like call your college coach, which you don't really want to do. But kind of being there, like you had people kind of looking after you a bit more. So I got used to it kind of through there, and then made the step to university was a little bit easier.
What's the culture like? It must be very different over there.
Yeah, obviously they speak English, so everyone expects you to like be kind of like really used to the American way of living. But it is quite different, I think. And I think especially being European, I've noticed that with the other like girls from Europe, that they find it quite difficult to kind of get used to the way of life and how people communicate and stuff.
And you were part of the Gator team over there, so what was that like? Give us a bit of an insight.
I mean, you travel, like, I think there's 4 tournaments in the fall and about 8 in the spring. So you go to different events with all the different girls on the team. And I mean, that's so much fun because you get to travel in a group of 6 and you become really close with all of them. And golf isn't really like that. It's an individual sport. So it's nice to kind of be able to meet people that way. And then obviously you have the men's team there as well. So it's fun. We would do like games with them and like play golf with them and
beat them.
Yeah. But then like the school itself there's nothing like it, like in, I would say in England, kind of because of the size. Like it's like massive. Like I can't describe it, because like the gym for the football team is just humongous.
Wow. And
it's pretty cool because you're there and you're like, oh, like there's like a girl who was like on the Olympics, like doing the 100-meter race. And I'm like, okay, you're pretty cool. Like,
As you do.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh God. So for those people who may not know, what sort of like the process of like the European tour and like the pathway, and basically for anyone who don't know that, what's it all about?
So it's like you have a access tour, which is like a tour below it. So you can play on that, and the top 6 players from that all earn their tour card. So it's basically like a league type thing, and you have different status depending on how you finish the previous year to get into tournaments. And it's like there's something about like 28 or 30 tournaments a year, which you can enter as many as you want, depending like on your ranking will depend whether you'll get into all of them or not. But then I did at Christmas like qualifying school. Mm-hmm. So you do a first stage and then a second stage, and like you have to qualify in the top 20 will get their like tour status, and then like you can build your way up, and like they have re-rankings and stuff during the year. But yeah, about 80 people roughly will have like a full tour card, like going into every year, and we'll get into every event, and then it kind of filters back.
You weren't quite sure you were gonna get your tour card this year or at Christmas, where you were in 2 minds about it. Mm-hmm. Why was that?
So I was still actually at university going at Christmas, and I kind of went there and I was like, oh, like I'll go play, see how I play. Like if I have a bad week, it's okay, no problem. Went there and played really well, and I'm like, oh, what do I do now?
Good problem to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you actually came top 5, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's pretty cool, yeah. So how did you actually feel once you actually made it onto tour? I bet that were like pretty incredible, right?
Yeah, I was kind of walking down like the last hole when I was playing it, and I was thinking to my mum, I was like, I've done this. And she was like, yeah, I know. And I was like, oh, right. So like, what now? And she was like, well, you have to decide what you want to do. And I'm like, wait, so that means I have to like live like as like a adult.
Yeah, I love that. So is it right that you had 2.5 weeks to sort of make a decision whether you were going to go pro or not?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that is pretty crazy. How did you sort of manage through that?
I mean, when I got my tour card, I was like, okay, this is my dream. This is what I've worked for my whole life. Going to university in America was like, the ultimate goal was then to turn pro. So I kind of knew, like, I got that point, I got the opportunity, and I felt like I was in the place where I couldn't turn it down. Yeah. It was just kind of hard to leave school, and like, I love my coach, and I like built a really strong relationship with her, and to kind of just drop it all kind of in a split second was quite difficult. So that was kind of like, I didn't want to leave, but I knew it's what I needed to do.
Absolutely. And I've got to ask as well, your mum was your caddie?
Yes.
So was she your biggest supporter? Did she talk you through moments? Like, how was that dynamic?
Yeah, so she just kind of honestly just chatted about like random stuff, because typically like when I try and play, I try and like stay in like a good mood type thing, like stay happy, like stay quite present and not worry about like previous shots. So my mum just kind of talks to me, like I'll hit a shot and I'll be like, oh, that wasn't a great one. And then my mum's like, oh, so what are we gonna have for dinner tonight? Like kind of like random stuff. So that's why I quite enjoyed having her like on the bag. But yeah, and then my dad was also there. He came out for the second week when I got into the last bit, and he's kind of been the person who's pushed me my whole life. So
was he kind of giving you some tips from the sidelines? Seeing as he is an actual coach, that must have been maybe helpful. I feel like normal people with normal parents, they always think they're coaches, but your dad actually is a tennis coach.
Yeah, I mean, he plays golf as well. And then like mental strength wise, he's pretty good, because obviously competing in tennis as well, you kind of learn that like drive and determination. But like, I love my dad, and annoyingly, he's normally right all the time, but doesn't mean I listen to it. So kind of he was there just more support and be there for me.
Amazing.
So just touching on, obviously, pressure. There's a lot of pressure in terms of, especially when you're playing the last hole and, you know, there's a place on the tour at stake. How do you sort of manage that pressure in the moment?
It is a weird feeling. And like, I think it's like you always try and practice under pressure. And I applaud people who can do it like really well. But to be in that situation, it's so hard to kind of like repeat that, not like on the golf course. But I think like I read the day before I did that, a quote about like pressure as a privilege. And I think that's so cool. Kind of, it's like, and I thought to myself, like walking there, I'm like, okay, I've put myself in this position, like this is pretty awesome. Like I'm just gonna like enjoy the moment and like be kind of, I don't know, like
embrace it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So looking sort of back on your career so far, like growing up, was there any golf heroes you looked up to? I know like your sister was a big part, but was there anyone else sort of who inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have the like Annika Sorenstam, who she hosted like a couple of events I played when I think the first one I was 15, and she goes there and like says a big hello to everyone, kind of gives a speech about different things she's went through. And I played a couple of her events now, and she'll do a different speech at each one. And I think just like she's just really like a cool person, and like she's quite laid back, and like she's not like in your face like, oh yeah, because I shot 59 the first time and I've like had the best, like she's nothing like that. And it's like amazing to think like, oh, she's just normal and nice. And then obviously she has all this experience and like knowledge with her. So when you speak to her, like she's just like an amazing kind of like book of information.
Does she know the impact that she's had on your career?
Probably not.
Hopefully she does now.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a cool lass.
Yeah, it's good to have those people to look up to. And actually, it shows the impact that these people can have when they go to schools or visit the community or different tournaments and they make these speeches. I feel like the impact that can have on the next generation and inspire the next generation is huge, isn't it? So I'm sure that you'll be doing a few of those speeches at some point as well.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
When you have been playing, you've referenced a quote by the American star Max Homer, and I'm going to read it back to you. Golf's a crazy game. You're one swing away from winning the Masters and one swing away from wanting to quit the game. Does that give you some sort of perspective? And why do you reference that quote?
I think it's just because it just reflects how crazy sport is. And like one day you think you're like the best thing, kind of everything's going your way, it feels so easy. and then the next day you just can't do it. And it's so frustrating. And you're like, why do I put myself through this? Like, I hate this. And then it's kind of the next day and then you're back to like feeling on top of the world. And I think golf is one of those sports where the extremities of that are just so much bigger. It's like, I think, like, for example, I always say to people, like, if you're a runner, you're going to roughly run in the same time. You're not suddenly going to run 5 minutes slower, like for a 5 kilometer run, and then the next day 5 minutes quicker. But in golf, you can literally go one day shoot 80, the next day shoot 60, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. So I think that's what makes that kind of quote so funny, because like you see like professionals on tour, they'll go 6 over, then 6 under, and you're like, what on earth? Like, that's crazy. But it can so easily happen. Just one thing goes your way and then you play really good. And it's kind of, you almost hold out for those days that go really good. And then you just do it 3 days in a row and you've won a golf tournament.
That's wild. That's mad. Just thinking of that, obviously you have some really high highs and then the lows are pretty low. Mm-hmm. So when you're having those lows, how do you sort of pick yourself up and obviously get through that?
Mm-hmm. I think kind of as I've got older, I've learned a bit more to kind of realise, like, golf isn't my whole life. And, like, as much as I love it as a big part of my life, I've now learned that, like, I'm also a person, I have other things I enjoy. And I think kind of you speak to a lot of the pros who then have, like, kids and stuff, and they say I go home and it's like, I look at my baby and, like, they're really cute. And I kind of have that with my dog. Like, I go home and I see my dog. But I think to kind of remember that, like, it's always like catching yourself, like when you're like, oh, this is kind of like, this is hard, and you're like, well, actually no, I'm gonna go like back, forget about today, have some like fun evening with my friends, enjoy my life, and then the next day I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna work hard, and it will get better. And kind of just always staying like on top of yourself and catching yourself before you go into that slump of, wow, this sucks, kind of.
That's why it's good when your mum's around talking about what you're having for dinner. Because it's actually a good distraction, isn't it? Sometimes you just need that. Do you have any superstitions that you do just to keep yourself calm or prepare yourself for a tournament?
Yeah, I'm like known for being very like routine orientated. Like, I do everything the exact same way. Like, I eat the same breakfast. I warm up the exact same way. And it's like, then if someone's like, oh, try this, I'm like, no, I can't try this. No. But kind of that, I just got better as like, I've now got like more chilled. But yeah, I used to be like, if I was playing well, I can take my jumper off.
Really?
I didn't want to like change how I was, you know. And now like I realise it won't make a difference. But
yeah, I totally get you on that though. It's a way of like mentally switching you on as well, isn't it? Like same routine, same warm up, and then if anything's different, it's like, well, this is different now, and I feel like it throws you off your game. So I completely get you on that. So yeah.
For anyone who wants to pick up some golf clubs, how would they go about starting?
I mean, there's like a multitude of ways, and I think fortunately, even though COVID obviously was a pretty tough time, but golf was able to grow during that stage, because obviously being an outdoor sport, I think sports in general kind of grew during COVID, and I think kind of there's more opportunities for people. You go to a driving range and you can just rent a set of clubs and then you can just go and try. And then there's more people offering like golf lessons, more golf clubs with open memberships, or you kind of, most people, I think if you reach out and say like any coaches, hey, like I'm looking to start golf, can you help me out? Like most people are very open to it. I will say though, it's a lot more difficult than it looks. Like I've taken a couple of my friends who kind of I just go to the gym with to like try golf, and they're like, wow, this is really hard to hit the ball. And it is. So like don't be discouraged the first day you do it, because like just like anything, the more you do it the better you get, but the first time it's definitely not as easy as people first think.